Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. And welcome to my Independence Report. My name is Kevin McDonald. It's Monday. It's such a nice day. Well, okay, it's rainy here. And the gentleman that we're talking to, his name is Chris Delaney. He's in England, in Manchester. Is it rainy there? I hear it does that a lot there, Chris.
It rains all the time in England, but this week we've had amazing sunshine. So I've been getting down to the beaches, going down south, over to Wales. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome because it does. You're along the same parallel as we are in Washington, and we're right here on the coast, and so we get not on right on the coast, but we're close, and so we get rained on a lot. So today's one of those, but now we're going to have like 6 or 7 days of actual sunshine because it's getting to be summer months, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, we get like 1 day of sunshine a month, and then the rest of it is just pouring down with rain.
Well, it keeps everything green and everything happy.
Yeah, we got lots of ducks.
Oh, that's cool. Well, Chris, we tried to do this last week and we failed miserably, but I'm glad we made it this week. And we're all set up to do talk about what you're going to talk about, which by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this now or later, what I'd like you to do, if you know somebody who's looking for work, if you know somebody that wants to improve their financial situation and get a better job, you need to listen to this hour because Chris is an expert on interviewing techniques. As a matter of fact, in one of the reviews that I'm sure you've read this review, the guy said, what Chris teaches is unfair because it gives the applicant an unfair advantage over the interviewer. Do you remember that one?
I try not to read these reviews just in case they're negative. I kind of what a positive mindset, but that's a great one. I'm going to be Googling that tomorrow.
Yeah, because it's like, that's not fair. He's telling them how to get through it and to interview properly, and which is different. By the way, we've got a book out that we want to reference, and that is What is Your Interview Identity? And how long has that book been out?
Well, it's on pre-release this month, so it's like right now. It's just come out pre-release, and then the 1st of September it'll be on Amazon and all the other bookshops.
Oh, very nice. So we're right on the cusp of something great. Have you had it review? No, you're not reading reviews, right? So you don't know how it's been accepted so far, right?
Yeah. So basically, people are kind of like pre-booking it now. They'll get it all delivered in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully the first reviews will come out at some point, and my publisher will say it's doing great or it's doing terrible.
So now what caused you to write this book, and what is your background, and how are you able to help people learn and exercise some of these interviewing skills?
So I'm just passionate about helping people. So I do like interview coaching. I use hypnotherapy to help people overcome like phobias and fears. But this book came about because I started reading quite a lot of research during COVID about the interview process. And all the interview research were kind of saying like very similar things. People who do this tend to perform well. People who have these characteristics advance the career quite easily. And this other group of people like really struggle for some reason. So all this research just made me to think, if I can flip this research the other way and start giving people advice about how you can succeed in the job interviewing, what little tweaks you need to make to be successful, then I can help hundreds of thousands of people, hopefully. So it came about from me being passionate about wanting to help people, but having all this research available during the COVID period.
Well, very nice. Very nice. Because I was, like I told you before we got on, I was in management for a very long time. And so I interviewed a lot of people over time. And it is amazing the different stories or the differences that people walk into an interview with. So it's obvious to me that nobody is out there giving them the type of experience and the type of blueprint that they need in order to interview properly. So I'm glad that you're doing this, because it is so needed by so many, because it's not something that you do all the time.
I think that's the problem as well. You don't do it all the time. So the fear of the unknown, the anxiety of being the center of attention for 45 minutes is like lots of pressure for people. But then on the flip side of it, a lot of career professionals spend such a small amount of time preparing for a job interview. But that job interview can get you a new job, a pay increase, a promotion, which then tends to like lead into like a better lifestyle, or you maybe got more money to do things with your family and your friends, or you can get a bigger house or whatever it is you want. So you got this like powerful 45-minute situation that can change your life, but people don't prepare for it.
No, and they don't prepare for it because they don't know how.
Definitely.
They don't know what they should be doing or should not be doing. It's like I always got the biggest kick out of the kid who came in for a job, and he was wearing let me change that. He was wearing like an AC/DC t-shirt and jeans, and he wanted I had a guy walk in one time. He walked in for a management position, and he came in a t-shirt and jeans. It's like, what in the hell are you thinking?
It's so funny, like the way people, like, I don't know, their mindset before a job interview can be completely different to how they act in normal life, because when you stress, your brain sends different chemicals to your body reacts in a different way. Like it stops digesting food because you're in this stressed state, and that definitely affects like your natural behavior. I don't know if that's the reason why you put on an AC/DC t-shirt or not, or maybe you just wait to show he was like a down-to-earth type of guy.
I'm pretty cool. I'm wearing I don't know. And the other thing, so let's get into it a little bit. What do you have some steps that you would recommend that on any level at any interview, that this is how you behave and what you do? Let's go through that a bit.
So all the research, when you read like hundreds of thousands of different papers, they all say the same three things. The three rules for a successful job interview is: one, identify the job criteria, because then you know what you need to talk about in the job interview. Rule number two is be a self-promoter. So many people disclose weaknesses, don't really sell their skills, strengths, and experiences. Even in promotional interviews, people just really stop expressing themselves because they think their managers should know what their talents and skills are because they work for the organization. But you need to be telling people what you're good at, what you can offer for their organization. And then rule three is to communicate with confidence. Anxious individuals will use more filler words, will mumble, will have shorter sentences, where confident people with high levels of self-esteem will use descriptive language, emotional words. They'll ask questions to the interview rather than just replying with an answer. They make it into a conversation. And they're more intuitive with like emotional intelligence. They can read the expressions of the interviewers and respond in the moment to how they think the interviewer is like receiving their answers. So the three rules are to identify the job criteria, be a self-promoter, and communicate with confidence.
Now, and I'm sorry, I have not read your book yet, but I wanted to go down this road with you a little bit, because there's also a pre-thing that you do before the interview to even set yourself up to be able to get the interview. What do you recommend people do in their work life when they identify a job that they want? And go ahead.
I was going to say, this kind of happened to me. Like when I left school, I left with no qualifications. I was dyslexic, and I got into this like manual handling work. You're working in warehouses and factories, but I was passionate about wanting to help people, and I just believed because I had no qualifications that I'd never get paid or get a job in that sector where I could help people. So I started volunteering, learning new skills, reading books about how to motivate people, how to make people more confident, going on training courses, and eventually getting qualifications in that sector. And it was that mixture of passion, and I had a really good opportunity as well that came together that made me successful. So if you're looking to like jump careers, get a new job in a new sector, or to find that first ideal position, you need to make sure that you're doing stuff that gives you the skills, qualities, and experiences that you can talk about in the job interview. Because if you don't reference the job criteria, you're never going to score high on the interview scorecard.
Exactly. Exactly. I have a real quick story. You tell me if I did the right thing. I was in the food business for a long time, and I was a food salesman for a particular company, and I found out that there was a position going to be opening to a brokerage company, a food brokerage company. They had all kinds of products, and they were taking on a new product line, which was a mayonnaise salad dressing line, and it was called Nally's. It's local up here, and so I went and talked to them, to just the receptionist briefly. I didn't get a chance to get the interview, but I set up the interview, and so I went home. I went to the store, and I bought a jar of Nally's mayonnaise, emptied the jar out, cleaned it out, put a bow around it, put my resume in it, and took it back there and put it in the door, so that it would be available to them when they opened the door the next morning. And he said, and it's a sales position, so you got to think creatively. And he said, I've never had anybody do anything like that. And it's like, I didn't get the job because they didn't get the line, but still, did I do the right thing?
That is absolutely amazing. I love that story. There's something dead similar where our web designer was out of work for a couple of years. So instead of creating a CV to send off to organizations, or a resume in America, he made it look like an Amazon sales page, and he had his own reviews on there, which was like his references. He gave himself 5 stars. But it was kind of like before the internet was as big as it was now. And he got offered loads of jobs. So it went viral, this online Amazon CV or resume. It was brilliant. You got to be creative sometimes. You got to think out the box, because what you're finding in recruitment in general, but especially in a job interview, is most people who apply for your job will have very similar level of experience and qualifications. Because generally speaking, a lot of people have degrees now. A lot of people will, depending on how old they are, will have 5 or 10 years experience, which is in line with this type of salary you go for normally. So everyone who's applying for your job is dead similar. So why should I hire you? What makes you stand out? Like, what can you offer me and my organization? You've got to do something to stand out.
Exactly. And a lot of times I was interviewing for a job, and when I went in for the actual interview, finally he showed me on his in his office was a couch, and on the couch was a stack of paper that had to be 2 feet high. And he said, those are all the resumes that I've had to go through. And because a lot of people wanted this job. So you got to separate yourself from other people, or you're going to get lost in the shuffle.
Definitely. One of the things that might be quite big in the future is video resumes. I think LinkedIn are going to start having them on their platform as well. So video resumes, you can really be creative with that, like background music. You can, video cut your video to make yourself stand out and do lots of different things. I think that's going to start getting people to have like the eyes on them. But apart from that, there's quite a lot of like subconscious things that happen in job interviews as well. And one of them is the affinity bias. So if I Google you, Kevin, and I realise that you like the Beatles and I like the Beatles, I can naturally mention that in a job interview. And then you'll have a bit of an affinity. You'll go, oh, we've got similar tastes, which naturally draws you together. And a big part of being recruited is liking. If people like you, they start scoring you subconsciously higher on the scorecard. And what we find with job interviews is it often comes down to like 1 or 2 points. Like I said, most people have similar experiences, similar qualifications, so their examples are the same. The interview hears the same thing day after day after day. So everyone gets a very similar marking. But if for some reason I kind of like you, I might give you an extra point on one of the questions. Or if I don't like you, you might get a minus point on one of the questions. That single 1 point can be the thing that gets you the job, gets you that pay increase, and gets you that promotion. Just 1 single point.
Now, what about smiling? And you'd be amazed how many people. I know it's a deadly serious situation because you don't have any money. You need a job, and you need the job now, and so that you can eat and you don't get thrown out of your apartment and all this other bad stuff that happens to you. But you got to be a bit of an actor, because you have to smile, you have to look relaxed. And is that right?
Well, hopefully you don't have to be an actor, because if you generally got good level of self-esteem, you'll be happy, you'll be smiling. Hopefully that's kind of part of your persona. And really the job interview is about going in there being yourself. But most people can't be themselves in job interviews because they're too stressed and too anxious, which is why stuff like the book like really helps. It gives you tips and techniques and like interview formulas to give you a bit of support. But really, all the advice out there, all the support you can get is to reinforce your level of confidence so you can promote yourself to the best of your ability. But smiling is a warming facial expression. And when you smile, people will like you a lot more. And the reason they like you a lot more is we have mirror neurons in our mind. So when you see a facial expression, even a micro facial expression, your brain copies that expression and then you feel that emotion. So if someone's smiling, you'll instantly feel that happy emotion yourself and then start associating that with the applicant. Even if you're like a proper negative, moody, like horrible, like interviewer, if someone smiles all the time, you can't help but like it. Like as soon as I met you, Kevin, you got great tonality, you got a great presence, you're smiling all the time. When you laugh, your head goes back. Like who can not like you, Kevin? You're such a warm person. And if I was your interviewer, I'm gonna want you on my team just because you're such a nice guy.
Well, and I thank you for that because I've actually done really quite well in interviews over the course of my life, and a lot of that's because I listen and I try and be engaging. I try and actually say something relatively intelligent, not stupid, and the questions I ask, I want them to be intelligent questions that are meaningful and stuff. So but I learned that by being an interviewer, because there are so many interviewers that they're not very. Sometimes they can be they intentionally. At least I found, and I'd ask your opinion. They intentionally give off the impression that they're mean and nasty because they want to put you under as much stress as they can during the interview. Do you find that to be true?
It's so funny interviewers because you got two camps basically. So you got often like a HR team who get recruited with HR qualifications. They get trained how to interview people. They kind of understand unconscious bias and then use techniques to overcome that so it doesn't affect the interview process. So you get this like trained group of people interviewing you. But actually, in like 80% of job interviews, it's your potential line manager who's interviewing you. And they often haven't been trained, don't really get unconscious bias, and Google what type of interview questions to ask people. So they're not even relevant to the job role that you're applying for sometimes. So the person who interviews you has got like this massive effect on how you perform in the job interview and how they understand what you're trying to portray. And then if you've got someone who's being like really cold and nasty and like being, you're going to answer my questions, that's so going to put you off, so you're not being your natural self. And I kind of get it in like high stress roles, or, if you're being a broker and you're handling like a multi-million-pound contract or something like that, you kind of need someone who can handle these situations, but not in like 95% of jobs. Like, just imagine a cold interviewer in like a retail job. Where are you going to put those beans? Like what's all that about? And people do that. Like, people think you have to be nasty in a job interview. But really, the job interview is the employer's way of predicting the job performance of each candidate. And to do that, you should be warm, you should be nodding, you should be encouraging, asking additional questions, getting people to relax a lot more. Because then your applicants open up because they relax and they tell you about their experiences and their skills. And then the interviewer and the interviewee have a perfect match, hopefully. But they don't do that often.
No, and and I oftentimes an interviewer, and I had assistants that would interview people, and they would be sitting there being stoic and stuff. I want them to be relaxed, at ease, so that they can be themselves. Because once they're themselves, I can find out what I really want to know. Are they going to be a good employee, a good person?
Definitely. I find, like, with the research that I've read, the structured job interview is the best way to predict job performance. So the structured job interview is where you get asked the same questions to each candidate, and there's a scoring system, often between like 1 and 4. So 4's great and 1's not too good. So the reason why that's so successful is because each score has got like the ideal answer next to it. So you can compare that to the applicant's answer, and you can also compare each applicant against each other. So that's why it's so successful. But the unstructured job interview is just like a natural conversation, a little bit like we're having now. There's no kind of prepared questions. You're not telling me what you're going to say. We're just having a chat, really. And that is really good because it allows people to open up and you get to understand their values, their personality, their motivational types. You can match that to the culture of the organization. But on its own, it's kind of not enough because you don't understand how they fit into the job duties and the job role. So an ideal job interview is a little bit of a mixture of those two things. A structured job interview followed by maybe like an informal one.
Exactly. I wanted to touch bases with you about something that I left management 20 years ago, so I haven't interviewed anybody in a while. But now there's a whole new thing with social media. And how does that come into play nowadays? Do they really, I've heard that this is true, but I don't know it. I'm hopeful that you can shed some light on it. Do employers really go to your Facebook page and your Instagram page and check out your posts and see what you're doing?
So I love that you said that you left management 20 years ago and you don't interview people anymore. Like you interview people all the time on the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That did give me quite honestly, that did give me quite a lot of experience as far as how to put people at ease, how to have a good time in the conversation, how to listen properly, how to knowing when to shut up, and stuff like that. But is social media a big deal these days?
Yeah, so two things with social media is one, you as the applicant can use it. So I talked before about affinity bias. One thing you can do is start Googling who your interviewers are, or go on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever and find out what their interests are, if they work for an employer that you previously worked for, or what sort of qualifications they got. You can find so much information out and then naturally talk about that in the job interview to get that affinity bias. The second part, or well, to answer your question, is some interviewers do check social media. So for the book and just in general, I speak to a lot of employers and find out what their recruitment processes are and what works and what doesn't work. And depending on your sector and often if it's a large organization or not, they do go on your social media feed and check what you're writing on there. They don't even need to personally do that because they can have AI systems that do that for them, that check social media. Like if you're applying for Google, I don't know if Google do this or not, but Google couldn't they just check every comment that you put onto the web, can't they, with their algorithms? But it is important to, especially if you're going for professional roles, is to look at your social media feed. Just as an example, I can't remember the lady's name, but this young girl, I think she was 18, became like the youngest ambassador for the police force in the UK. And it was like this big thing that happened a couple of years ago, and there's like loads of media about it. And then one of the newspapers searched her Twitter feed, and I think it was either a sexist or a racist comment that was on it. But from years ago when she was like 13 or 14, probably done in humour at the time, and she actually got kicked out of her job role after like 2 or 3 weeks of being in there because of what she put on Twitter like several years before.
So never post naked pictures of yourself or naked pictures of somebody else or something that is racist or so can be even perceived as that. I would advocate, if you're really looking to excel in the marketplace, shut up and keep your face off of Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. You need to be professional on these platforms now. It's such a big part of our world. Like, you know, everyone looks on there, don't they? And they might not follow you, but they might be following one of your friends who's following you as well. It's so easy to be in contact with people. And if you are posting like a lot of what you might perceive as humorous material that is offensive to certain people, especially if it's a common thing you do, it's going to get picked up. And even if they interview you, because they can't not interview you for that reason as a potential, there's a thing called the halo and horns effect. So the halo effect is if your application form like sounds amazing, or you got a really good social media feed where you talk about industry insights and sector updates and giving advice and opinions, and employees are like, wow, this is amazing. Because you got the halo effect, they're more likely to score you higher during the job interview because of your pre-interview application. But it's the same with the horns effect, so like the devil effect. If you got loads of negative stuff out there, or the interviewer reads your application, they're kind of thinking, I'm not too sure about this person. That's their opinion that filters your interview answers. So pre-interview like preparation is key because it can be part of the unconscious bias that affects your interview skills.
Absolutely. Now, how do you help somebody with hypnosis?
Yes. So I clip my fingers and I say, "You're cured."
And you're gonna sound like it. You're gonna bark like a chicken.
Yeah, you're gonna bark like a chicken. Yeah. So hypnosis is great because what you're essentially doing is getting someone who's got a negative emotional association to a stimulus. So you're scared of spiders or you're scared of going to the job interview. And all you do is getting someone to relax to a level where you can change that association. So instead of being fearful of the spider or the job interview, you can get them to feel more calm and relaxed and then associate that new feeling with that stimuli. And it's a very easy technique to do because you can imagine that situation like the job interview being really far away. So you're saying, oh, you remain calm and you're confident and you relax. And just as you're feeling calm, confident and relaxed, imagine the job interview, but it's really far away so you can barely see it. So it doesn't really affect them anyway. And you bring that image closer and closer, but increase that level of confidence and that level of calmness. And before they know it, they're in the job interview or holding a spider, feeling calm and relaxed. And that's essentially what I do during the 60-minute hypnosis sessions.
Now, can you do those over the phone? Do you use Zoom? Do they need to be in face to face?
So no, you can do it anywhere really. So I do it because I work with American clients quite often. Actually, I do it on Zoom and over the phone. Some people like it face to face because they kind of want to have that rapport with the hypnotherapist as well. But really, it's not about being face to face because the idea is you close your eyes and you kind of drift off into your imagination, and it's your imagination and your subconscious that make all the natural changes. The main thing is getting people to want to change because that's a turning point. People have anxiety and fears and phobias for like 20, 30, 40 years. And it's like, how can I make that change? You're making them want to change. You make them want to change, then they'll be successful in that therapy session.
When you are talking with somebody, and by the way, if somebody wants to call you or to work with you, do they do it via email? Can they call you? How does that work?
So I just have contact forms on my website. So my hypnotherapy is on christopher-delaney.com. And all the interview stuff is on employmentking.co.uk. And it's just booking forms at the bottom of all my pages, and people just contact me that way.
So if you are... If the interview's always been problematic for you and you don't feel comfortable with it, I would highly suggest that you get in contact with Christopher because he can help you make it more comfortable. And quite literally, it could add thousands of dollars to your portfolio in a year because you can get that job that you might not otherwise have gotten. Has that been your experience with helping people?
My favorite feedback I got is when one guy emailed me and said, "Oh, thanks for the one single session." And I think it was really early on in my career. I think I might have been charging, I don't know, $40 or $50 or something. And he goes, "Thanks for your session. I just got £100,000 pay rise or something." It was like a CEO going from like one organisation to another. I was like, I should have charged him 10%. What the hell am I doing?
$100,000 pay raise. That would be
yeah. It was something ridiculous anyway. But most people kind of get like 10K, don't they? But yeah, he was at a very high position, and he struggled actually. He was obviously very skilled, very talented, and he struggled with two things. One was kind of framing the answers so he could like sell his experiences, but the second one was the public speaking aspect. In those roles, you often have to like do a presentation and present data and stuff like that, and he really struggled standing up in front of like a panel of people and having to present like live.
That's a real skill, being able to stand up in front of a group of people and appear, nobody's comfortable, but to appear to be comfortable and to actually have something intelligent to say and not just stand there and look at people.
It's interesting as well. It's interesting because everyone says this, but with that particular client, he said, in the boardroom, I'm a master. Presenting data to my team, I can do it every single day. In the job interview, I fall to pieces. And this is the thing: you might be dead confident in life, you might be really confident in your career, but in the job interview, in that particular environment, people are really anxious because the pressure is on them. They do research every year to like what's the most common phobia, and the most common phobia every single year is being the center of attention. So people are more scared literally about talking about themselves than they are of dying.
Yeah, of dying?
Yeah. So dying, so being scared of dying is like 2 or 3, where being the center of attention, so speaking in public and interviews and that sort of stuff is always number 1. People are more scared of that than anything else.
That's amazing. Yeah, but I can believe it. Now, I've always been a bit of a ham anyway, but so I've never had that particular issue. But I can understand that a lot of people do. I have another quick story for you. How would you handle this? I worked for a guy. His name was Tom. He was the dining room manager at the DoubleTree where I was working, and the food and beverage manager's name was George. I'll leave out the last names. Well, George didn't like Tom very much, and so he fired Tom. Fast forward six or 8 years, Tom left that job and got a corporate job working for Holiday Inn. So he was in charge of like 20 different Holiday Inn food service departments. George got fired from the DoubleTree eventually, and he ended up being interviewed by Tom for a job with the Holiday Inn. And first of all, would you advise him to even bother to go to that interview?
Well, why not? Like, you got to take your chances sometimes, aren't you? Because I always find like being successful is having the skills and talents and the passion for what it is you do. But the other part is just luck. You need luck in your life. So you sometimes go to that job interview, befriend them, reframe that whole situation. It was several years ago. You can like explain that in a particular way that might make you look like the hero instead of the villain. And if it does all fail, it's a great experience. And if you get onto a podcast, you can tell that story, can't you? So it's a win-win, really.
That's exactly right. Well, it was funny because the interview ended up with Tom going, "Don't you remember that you fired me?"
That's the advice I'd never give anyone. Don't remind them that you. Do you not remember that you fired me? I was rubbish.
That's right. And so needless to say, he didn't get the job. But that's some of those things happen in interviews that are just amazing. And they're funny stories. But it wasn't funny for poor old George at the time because he left and he still didn't have a job. But that makes it tough. What is appropriate and what is not appropriate to talk about in an interview? Is money appropriate to talk about?
No, so this is everyone always asks about the money question all the time, but often you don't get asked, what are your salary expectations until you get to the second or third round of job interviews, because they're not going to offer you any money until the last 1 or 2 people, and they're kind of making that final decision. So you don't really want to bring that up as well. Like most organizations will present the salary as part of the job advert, so it's kind of clear what it's going to be. There's always like a set to average as well, so you kind of know what type of salary you should be expecting for that position as well. But I've got a great negotiation tip when you are negotiating your salary. So what happens is a technique called baseline technique, and whatever number you present to someone, they'll use that as the baseline. So as an example, if I said pick a number between 1 and 10, and then I name a number, you're more likely to pick a number around that particular number. So I said pick a number between 1 and 10, and it doesn't have to be 4, but that was just an example. You're more likely to say 3, 5, 6, or 7 compared to 9 or 10. So it's the same when in salary negotiations. Whoever offers the first salary, the next negotiation will be based on that salary. So as an example, if an employer says, I want to offer you £30,000, you'll say £40,000 and you'll meet halfway at 35k. But if you set the salary negotiations off at 45,000, they'll probably come in about 35,000 and you'll meet at 40,000. So it's a 5k pay rise in that situation. So always be the first person to initiate the actual salary negotiation.
That is great advice right there, because a wise man once told me you only get a first interview once. And after you set the tone, after that, it's all downhill from there. And if you undersell what you're going to be capable of doing for the organization, and part of that underselling is by bidding low because you want to get the job, you're bidding low on what you're going to accept as a salary. Sometimes that backfires, doesn't it?
I had someone who I was interviewing, and we was negotiating the salary, and I kind of said, like, that's kind of it now, I can't go ahead anymore. And then she kind of said, well, that's great, that's fine. I will accept it. And I know we've kind of been discussing the salary for a couple of days now, but that just shows that my negotiation skills are very strong, and that's what I'll be bringing to this team. So she reframed that whole. I think she thought I was getting sick of negotiation, but she reframed it in a way I was like, yeah, you actually you are going to be a great negotiator.
And that's what you got to sell yourself, and a lot of people have trouble with that. Making the argument that you are the best for the job.
Yeah, so I think what's really I think one of the things that people always miss out on job interviews is they always talk about past experience. So give me an example when you did this thing, and they say, well, previously in this role I did A, B, and C. You need to as well make it relevant for that job. So you can summarize by saying, so as you can see, I have these skills, which means when I work for you, I will be able to do A, B, and C as well. So don't just talk about past achievements. Make it relevant to that job role and their organization. Make them see the value of that skill or that experience that you're discussing in the answer.
Because that skill can be used in a whole bunch of ways that sometimes they're interviewing you and their job responsibilities that you don't even know about yet, and they don't bring them up. Has that been your experience as well?
Definitely. Job descriptions are really funny because job descriptions are what you base your interview answers on when you're trying to prepare your interview questions. But most job descriptions aren't the actual job. You get into a new organization, it's completely different to what you discussed on that application form. I don't know why employers do that, but it's so common that it's kind of like a little bit misleading as well. And what you need to do as well in the interview, because sometimes the questions are kind of generic or ambiguous, you need to try and pick up what the culture of the company is and talk about the values that they embed in their everyday operation. So as an example, if you go into a company and they keep talking about like being innovative and innovators, like bring up that you're a creative person, that you always got loads of ideas, that you like trying new things, compared to saying that you use the same techniques over and over again to get really solid results. Think about these small, specific values and the company culture, because that really draws people into them. People want to get someone who's part of the team, who's part of the culture.
Are there huge differences in cultures from employer to employer, and is it based on the family that created them, or the CEO at the time, or so what are some of those differences?
So we're kind of working or applying for work now in a global job market, especially like online tech jobs and stuff. Anyone around the world can apply for those positions, and vice versa. You can work anywhere you want to work. So each country's kind of got its own culture as well. So some countries will be like a top-down country like China, where you have to do what you're kind of told to do. So as an example, if you're applying for a job in America, which is more about being collaborative and being creative and people sharing responsibility, and the interview question is about problem solving, someone from China might talk about waiting to be directed, waiting to be told what to do, where the American employer will be wanting ideas and suggestions and collaboration. So sometimes the country where the employer comes from, or where the job is based, or their heritage really affects how they filter your information. But on a smaller level with company cultures, it's massively important, because one company might like routine and using the same old practices, and other organizations will be really creative and innovative. And you see this when technology changes. We have a thing called the Yellow Pages in England back in like the 90s and the 80s. And it basically had every business in there. So you went through this page and found any business. But as soon as the internet came on, we didn't need that. We just Googled everything. But Yellow Pages was really far behind. They didn't realize the internet was going to take off like it did, and lost like billions of shares and stuff like that, because there wasn't innovative and creative enough. And this is why organizations work and search for certain people, certain characters.
Yeah, because that's one of many businesses that thought they were really thriving, and suddenly the technology went away from them, and they didn't evolve with it. We're having that problem in this country with great big box retail stores. Nobody's going shopping anymore. Everybody's going online to do shopping, and so they don't need all this space that they've got. But they have a lot of them are trying now to catch up, but it's very hard.
It's very interesting all that as well. Just simple things as well, where the culture of an organization, say it's a retail company, might be like, we got the product, so the customers kind of have to wait for us because it's like a demand thing. Where Amazon kind of changed that market. You order something today and it's here 12 hours later. Into they're looking at getting drones to like drop parcels off when you're walking down the street or in the park. So they make it very customers focused. So some organizations are kind of are gonna lose business because their culture of the company or their management style isn't following the trends that the people want.
Well, I'll tell you, since COVID, I've been shopping at Amazon a lot more. I cannot figure out how they can make it pay because I'm a Amazon Plus guy. How they can make it pay by not charging me freight on a $10 item and delivering it the next day. I almost feel guilty because they can't make any money doing that, but they apparently they figured out a way to get that done. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you the secret they got. The secret is Amazon is so good that we come on here to talk about job interviews and recruitment, and then half an hour into the phone call, we talk about Amazon and how great and how wonderful they are as a retail supermarket, and that's the difference. But bringing it back to the job interview as well. If you're applying for like a marketing position with Amazon, what sort of person are they going to want? Somebody who's kind of like the customer needs to come to us. We're like the big company, and it's all about the customer like bowing down to us. Or are they looking for somebody who's like customer focused, who wants to make it quicker and faster and cheaper and better, who's innovative, who's creative? That's what they're looking for.
And I'll tell you, if you're going to go take an interview with Amazon, you need to talk to Chris, and I'll tell you why. The last job I had before this one, I was driving a bus, and one of the gals that worked there or that was there, she rode the bus and she worked for Amazon. She was in a human resource procurement. And what she would do is they had a whole series of the types of interview questions and how they did it. And it was all through analytics and it was very structured. And they would ask you questions that you need to know the answer to, or at least to find an answer to. So you need to talk to Chris, because I'll tell you that it's a very exacting process they put people through.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what as well? Like kind of predicting job interview questions is pretty easy. There's kind of like 3 easy ways to guess the job interview questions. I mean, you can guess and you can prepare like really strong answers. So the first one is the job criteria that comes with your application form. The common stuff that's repeated over and over and over again in that document is quite likely to be one of the questions. So to talk about creativity, innovation, lots, you're going to be asked, give me an example of being creative or innovative. The second one is going on places like LinkedIn and finding people who worked for that organization, engaging them online and then kind of asking them what the company's like, building up a bit of friendship with them, and then finally kind of go, what questions did you get asked in your job interview? And then the final easiest one is kind of just Googling common questions for whatever the job role is, and then get the common questions that are asked in that particular sector. But by kind of understanding what you're quite likely to be asked allows you to pick the perfect examples, especially when you Google stuff like the company culture, or you spoke to people who give you an insight to how the organization operates. Your answers will kind of hit all the criteria on the scorecard, which leads to high scoring interview answers.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Go on LinkedIn and find people that work there, because they'll have either something really good to say or not so, depending. But so basically what you're saying to me is that, because I've never known this to be true, that a lot of people go into an interview and they do not prepare. They don't do their homework prior to, and they go in and try and wing it. It's not a very good smart answer, is it?
It's crazy as well, because it is such a big stepping stone in your life. When you get a job, if you get a job that you love as well, like your work-life balance is amazing because you're not stressed going to work. You're working for an organization that you're proud to be there, and the salary is often quite good. And it's such a big stepping stone in your life. You should really put some effort in, even if you don't kind of like buy the books or book an interview coaching session or whatever. Like, prepare. Like, don't just spend 30 minutes thinking about what to say. Practice public speaking. Go to an improv class. Improv classes are great for job interviews. If you get asked to stand on stage and talk about a chicken that's chasing a dog, and you have to just talk about that now, and then you can deliver like a great little speech or something. When you get asked, tell me about your experience, about your life, about your qualifications, you can easily talk about that for like 5 or 10 minutes, can't you? So improv, public speaking, but even just writing down your interview answers to the predicted questions. If you write an interview answer down 3 times, one, the answer gets a little bit more succinct and the structure becomes a bit more better. But if you write it down 3 times, it gets stuck in your head. So when that question comes up, it just naturally pours out of you without you having to think about it.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. By the way, the name of the book is What is Your Interview Identity? So let me ask you about that. When you say interview identity, what do you mean?
So the job interview is all about perception, how you're perceived by the employer. And generally speaking, there's 3 things that affect the job interview. One is unconscious bias, which is just instant. So if the interview is sexist or racist or there's an affinity bias going on, that's kind of like instantaneous, like in milliseconds of meeting someone, you kind of get that I like or dislike you. The second point is the interview's behavior affects how the applicant acts in that interview. So if the interviewer thinks you're not going to be a good fit for the organisation, their behaviour will change. That makes the applicant's behaviour change. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the interviewer thinks you're going to be rubbish, you start acting rubbish. So it's like, yes, I knew you were rubbish. So the third one, which is what the book covers all this, by the way, but the main thing is the interview identity. Now that's based on your level of perceived experience and knowledge for that job sector versus the level of confidence in that job interview. So you've got like loads of knowledge and experience, but your confidence level is really low. You're not really going to talk the talk. You're kind of just going to mumble your way through answers. They might know through your application form that you got loads of experience and knowledge, or you might even have a bit of a halo effect. But if you can't communicate that during that 45-minute interview process, you're going to start getting scored low. Or you might be dead confident, really charismatic, talk the talk, but you can't walk the walk because you've not got that sector experience or the qualifications that give you the models and theories to discuss during a job interview that's relevant to that job sector. They're going to kind of think, I thought you was going to be really good, but now you're not coming across that good. So is there a bit of deceit going on here? So the most popular interview identity, or the one that people want and the one that gets offered the most job roles, the ones where you got a high level of sector knowledge and experience and a high level of confidence, because if you're confident, you can communicate your competencies to a level that people go, wow, this person's the person we need on our team, or this person can bring so much to our organization, or he's going to double our profit margins. So it's a high level of knowledge and experience versus a high level of confidence. That's what makes you successful in a job interview.
But if you've got a high level of confidence and don't have much experience and you're trying to bullshit your way through, that can be a very bad moment, can't it?
Yeah. People can think you're being deceitful as well, because when you kind of when you're confident as well, like you self-promote all the time, which is amazing in a job interview. You should always self-promote in a job interview. Give best performing day answers, not average day answers. But if you're so confident that you're self-promoting, but you've got no idea what you're talking about, people are going to figure you out, because you're going to talk about stuff and they're going, what the hell does that mean? I know people who've gone to job interviews and like use acronyms, and I questioned them. So if you get interviewed by someone who's an expert and who is confident as well, if they don't know what it is you're talking about, they will ask you. If your interview is lacking confidence, they don't always challenge you. But someone who's an expert will challenge you because they're passionate about the industry. So they want to know what it is you're talking about. So if you use an acronym you don't really understand it, and they're like, oh, what does that mean? You're going to look like a right fool, aren't you? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I heard somebody say that one day, and I thought it was kind of catchy. I don't know. By the way, we've been talking with Chris Delaney, and your website again, young man, if somebody wants to talk to you about a job interview.
employmentking.co.uk.
employmentking.co.uk. Awesome. And I think I put that up, but I'll make sure that gets up. And so the book comes out and is going to be in wide release in September.
Yeah, 1st of September. So it'll be on all bookshelves and online book places. So obviously Amazon is the big one that we've been talking about today.
By the way, can I have your permission to put, because I've got a website that's coming up, and I would like to put your book on my recommended reading website so that they can click on that and go to Amazon and buy your book. Can I do that?
That'd be amazing. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I love to do that, because anytime that I can help somebody get a better job, and or by reading that book, they learn their interviewing skills so that they can go do that. Because I tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than just acing a great interview. There's nothing more terrifying than screwing one up.
It's so true as well. But when you screw them up as well, I know this is like so common to say, but you do have to look at it as like a learning development, because if you don't look at it in that perspective, you'll just focus on the fear and the anxiety, and anxiety just grows and grows and grows, and it becomes like a beast that you can't control. And then that anxiety becomes associated with a job interview, recruitment processes, going into meetings in the workplace. You become scared of talking. Because that anxiety can go so big. So you need to look at it from like, I've messed up here. We had an interview last week, didn't we, Kevin? And my internet wasn't working. I couldn't. It was so embarrassing that I might have gone, oh, I can't speak to Kevin again. That was ridiculous. It was so embarrassing. I can't do that. So unprofessional. But instead, I was like emailing you. You was emailing me. We got it together today, and it's working really well. You kind of have to laugh at these mistakes, and you learn from the experiences, and just go for it. If someone don't like you because of who you are or your experiences or your characteristics, it doesn't matter. Like, if they don't like you, you probably weren't going to be suitable for that role anyway. Go to the companies that want to hire you. Just be you. You don't need to fake it. The whole interview identity thing as well. It's not about faking who you are. It's about just be you, but be you naturally. Be confident. Be confident within yourself.
Absolutely, because if you're not confident, then, well, first of all, you got to know what you're talking about. And then once you do, you got to be confident about it. And then you got to convince the company that you're going to make them money.
It's do you know what? It's like the bottom line. Even like charities need to make money to pay the bills, don't they?
Yes,
to pay everything. That's always what they're looking for. But every time you get asked a question, always think about the job and think, why are they asking that question? Like, what's important? If it's about teamwork, like, why is it important that they want you to be a team player? Like, what's the long goal for that? The long goal at some point is to make money. So you need to be talking about that. Talk about ideas that have been successful. Talk about when you put suggestions in that's doubled the percentage of customers you got, or reduce the amount of errors that the organizations make. Talk about how your work ethic inspires other people. So, if you hire me, my work ethic is really strong. But I've noticed that when I work with different organizations, that because I work so hard and so strong, like, other people start working a little bit harder. It's like everyone is more productive by about 10%.
What do they say? Like that, can't you? What do they say? Rising water raises all boats. Isn't that how that works? And it's also like if you can talk to somebody and you're going to be in a management position and you say, my last job, I cut turnover by 75%. Then they're going to say, well, why did those people stay? It's because I do a good job working with them, and it works out well. And we cut the turnover rate, which meant we didn't have to train new people, and these people got better, and the productivity went up. It all worked hand in hand. And you talk in those terms, people tend to like you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like throw out all these keywords as well, so you can kind of use those like power words that you just described then, or use sector-related acronyms and models and theories. Because if you taught naturally, you get perceived as having a higher level of knowledge and experience, because only people who've worked in the sector or who are experts naturally use all that jargon and all that, all those terms. So just speak about them quite naturally throughout the job interview.
Exactly. Chris Delaney has been our guest. Chris, before we go, give our audience just one golden nugget for them to take with them.
So the best takeaway, the best golden nugget that you can have is use the language the interviewer uses in the job interview. This is really important because people are motivated in very different ways, and their motivational trait comes out in the language that they use. So if you use their same language, you're then likely to have an affinity with them, rapport with them, and they can filter that information without generalizing it, without distorting it, in a way that makes you seem really, really hireable. So if they're talking at a very simple level, if they're talking about creativity, but they're using the word innovation, just use that particular word. If they're talking about achieving goals, you talk about being an achiever and rather than overcoming obstacles, because people are motivated by pain, getting away from problems, or they're motivated by pleasure, like achieving stuff. So use the language that they use, because that really influences the job interview.
Brilliant. Simply brilliant. Chris Delaney has been our guest. And when the book comes out in September, it's What is Your Interview Identity? And that's the name of the book. Chris Delaney has been our guest. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show with me. And it's been awesome. I'm glad we came back and we got it together, because this has been a hell of an interview. It's been great fun.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. It's been brilliant speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I got to do this ending, and then I'll be right back. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other, because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.